Welcome to This Week in Habsland. I am Jordan and he is Brian, and we are back after a week and a half of walking outside, taking a break from hockey, breathing. I'm kidding. We've just been really dialed in still, watching the Stanley Cup final every single minute. Brian, have you watched, how many minutes of the Stanley Cup final have you watched? It's been a decent final. We're recording this before game 3. So how much of the first 2 games have you watched?
Before game 4.
Apologies. Yes, before game 4.
Yeah, before game 4. Game 3 was wild. All those records being broken, 3 goals within 30-something seconds. That was absolutely insane. That one I wasn't watching. I was at a charity tournament all this weekend, and then someone's like, wow, it's 4-0. All right, I'm not watching this one when I get home. No point taping this. And then I just look at NHL.com later on. I'm like, 4-4, what the hell happened?
Yeah.
Kind of ridiculous. Yeah. Also, I'll throw this in just as we're starting. Apologies for my absolutely depressing, the most depressing I've ever been on this pod last episode after the Canadiens were eliminated. If there was a time to be depressed, I suppose it's that, but I think I could have provided a little more levity, as I usually do.
I think you were fine. I think you were justified in your sadness. It's all good. Listen, I've watched some of the final. I watched all of game 2. Enjoyed it. Game 3, I caught bits and bobs. I did definitely gave up when I got the 4-0. Sorry. Got other things to do. Been a good final. As much as it pains me to say, it's been a good final. So we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about the Habs. Lot to get to. So this is how we're roughly going to break down this episode. We're going to do our Habsland MVP, which is kind of one of our longest standing traditions at this point. We're going to do that at the end of the episode. So we'll save that for the end. Not like we're going to truncate it to a 6-minute discussion, but it's just towards the back because we thought it'd be important to start with kind of a season overview discussion, kind of reorient ourselves after taking a few weeks off and seeing what stings just as bad as it did a couple weeks ago, Brian, and see what have we maybe had a bit of space from. And then we're going to get into some news and notes, certainly the Matthew Knies stuff, the Dylan Larkin stuff, Brendan Gallagher. Like we'll touch on all of it. As a note, the plan is for us to record basically every week. We'll have an episode out every Monday up until the draft, and then record after the draft as well, not right after free agency. So we're back, we're around, and let's dive into it, Brian. So we did these 3 questions. I think last year was the first time we actually did this. Maybe it wasn't, but I actually really enjoy this as like a very quick, high level, not necessarily even high level, just like don't overthink it. Answer this question. So it's the same 3 we had last year. When thinking about the Montreal Canadiens 2025-2026 season, A, what did the season teach us for the better? B, what did the season teach us for the worse? And C, what did we not get an answer to this year? So, Brian, which one of those 3 questions do you want to start off with?
We could start better. Let's start happy. So I'll answer what did the season teach us for the better first. The core works. That's my first answer. I got 3 answers for each of these. I don't know how many you have, but I'll start with my first one. The core straight up works. Suzuki, Caulfield, Slav, Demidov, Newhook, Hudson, Dobson, Gooley. I could add some, but that's already a big core right there. These guys, at a really young age, are leading this team into uncharted waters, and they're only going to improve from here. So that's an amazing thing.
Yeah. I mean, like, yeah, my notes are a bit different on that, but to that point, by and large, yes, the proof of concept we're beyond proof of concept at this point. Enough of what we saw from the first week of October through the end of May worked. Was it perfect? Absolutely not. But I mean, even the team that wins the cup, it wouldn't have been perfect. But by and large, yes, the makeup that they have, it's still very young, and some stuff, and this is what a lot of the analysis is going to be like, how much of this they just need to get older. With how many of these questions you ask the team is just, well, Lane Hudson at 27 is going to be way better than Lane Hudson at 22, which is scary. But same goes for Slav, same goes for Demidov, same even goes for Cole Caulfield. And maybe him, it's a little bit less about age and more about just like how many rounds of the playoffs do these guys have to play together? And they got so much of it. But yeah, proof of concept is where we've passed that. We are fully now in like testing phase of like real experience. They passed many, many tests. So it was great. Yeah, I agree. Keep going with your other 2. I want to hear all 3 of yours.
Yeah, okay. So number 2, this one is very playoff specific. The Canadiens can play different styles to better counter their opposition. I did not expect this. Against Tampa Bay, risk aversion was the most important thing. Avoid risks at all costs. Win a 1-goal game. That's what they were doing against Tampa if all went well. Versus Buffalo, flip the script. Habs could play more loose. They were using their speedy style, their counterattacks to score a ton. And then obviously, like, you get to the Carolina series, and I think that was just a full tank beating an empty tank. So we didn't really get to see any particular style from the Canadiens after game one. It was more like watching some guy go into the fetal position and protect his neck while a bear paws at him. That's what it really felt like. But all that being said, it was a phenomenal learning experience. And the other thing, too, is it's shown us the shortcomings of this young team. That's really valuable information. And you said it on the last pod when I was busy wearing all black and black eyeliner and just completely depressed. But you said it. You said often a team this young doesn't get experience like this and doesn't learn these lessons for another 2-3 seasons. So to have learned them this early is absolutely a blessing.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't have said it better myself, especially that last piece of what did we learn? Well, we learned where the gaps are. And you might be able, in a more pessimistic frame of mind, view that as what did the season teach us for the worse? But because so many of these guys are young and there's so much space still to grow, I think there should still be a lot of hope in terms of Yuri Slavkovsky figuring out a more consistent playoff style. There should still be a ton of hope with Demidov being more effective consistently in the playoffs. And the list goes on and on in terms of, like, obviously, like, Nick Suzuki and Cole Caulfield operating better at 5-on-5. Like, it's all still there. And the fact that we're starting to identify, and this is some of the stuff that, like, maybe we can jump into this briefly in terms of the locker room clean out. The one thing that we didn't hear on, I think it was the 1st of June, was we didn't get an injury report. We didn't hear about, like, hey, so-and-so. I mean, no one had to do surgery other than Noah Dobson, but that was beforehand. No one has, as far as we know, it was never reported surgery, and I don't think you're allowed to hide that type of stuff anyway. But we didn't get, this guy had a sprained ankle, this guy had a broken thumb. We didn't hear any of that. Now, I think it's very unlikely there's 0 injuries, and it seems way more likely that it was a team-wide decision to say, we're not going to share. And that's honestly, actually, it's becoming more and more common with these teams. I think the Senators did it as well, where they're like, we're just not going to tell you guys what happened because it's going to be perceived as an excuse. Now, what is critical to understand the difference here is, for us, for the bozos like us on the outside, it hurts our it hurts our ability to correctly assess what was poor performance versus what was Nick Suzuki couldn't shoot for the last 3 games of the playoffs, right? Now, the good news is the guys on the inside, they know all that information. They're just not going to share it with us, and that's fine. You know what I mean? Like, we cannot have a discussion on some of this stuff convincingly because we actually don't know all the answers, but it's different from, like, Kent Hughes, Marty St. Louis, Jeff Gordon, Nick Suzuki, whoever, like Trevor Letowski, like Alex Burrows, like all those guys being like, yeah, but so-and-so was, X, Y, and Z. So they didn't share it publicly. So that hurts our ability to do that analysis. But odds are they have a much clearer understanding of, like, Kent Hughes definitely knows more of, like, oh, this person struggled because why? Like, Josh Anderson stopped hitting in the Carolina series because he had a separated shoulder. I don't know. They're never going to tell us. But the good news is management knows in terms of what's going to happen. So that in terms of, like, what did they teach us for the better? You and I don't know, but the team itself, the organization does know in this sense.
And I think that by extension, keeping the cards close to the chest is good for future playoff runs where you come up against the Florida.
Yeah, that too.
A team that's just going to absolutely target, oh, wow, Slavkovsky really fell off the face of the earth after that fight and after getting crushed in open ice. Let's do that to him. So I really don't mind them not disclosing. Obviously, like, the curiosity is killing me, but we don't need to know. And other teams don't need to know. As long as in-house they're dealing with it and the proper precautions are being taken for the future and everybody's getting healthier, that's fine. Look, we've said it before. Whether they were hurt or not, they were dead tired. It was 101 games.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
None of them have ever played that many.
Which I think, by the way, I think we said it on the last episode, how long the season was. You and I did the math. I think it was tied for the second longest Montreal Canadiens season ever. I'm going to forget.
I think I was mistaken when I said it was number 1. I got a bad stat. Yeah. But, okay, we'll take second.
It's tied with 2010. That has the exact same 775, and then memory will betray me here.
It had to have been 93.
93, I think, is also tied with 101, and then it's 86 or 87 that has 103.
Well,
games.
They won in 86, so that would make
sense.
So,
anyways, it's one of those, because there's an 84. NHL used to have an 84-game season. They're obviously bringing it back next year. Besides the point. Okay, so that's 2. What was your third?
Number 3, this we learned for the better. We have 2 young goalies who both have the potential to become well above average in the NHL. We have Jakub Dobeš, who had himself a terrific rookie season.
Yep.
And I know he was one of the biggest pieces of this playoff puzzle for the Habs. His development has gone very smoothly thus far. And at 24 years old, he's still climbing the skill tree and he's growing. He's 25 right now. He turned 25 like a little less than 2 weeks ago, but basically the whole playoff run, the whole season, he was 24 years old. And at that young age, he was a major reason that the Habs made the conference finals. And obviously, we'll be giving him more flowers later on in this episode, so I don't have to go into specifics. As for Jacob Fowler, who we won't talk about too much probably for the rest, of course, we only got to see him play 17 regular season games. But to me, that was more than enough to show us that he's already great and he's only getting better. He's 21. He's still Calder eligible next season, by the way. But he plays with the movement control and the puck control of a steady veteran, which I think is just such a blessing to have 2 young goaltenders who are already very well suited for their positions at this moment.
And I can dive into mine now because it overlaps a bit with one of mine. And one of the things I learned for the better was Jakub Dobeš is way more than just a serviceable starter. Walking into the season, we thought 1B. If he can be a good 1B here to Monty, we're in good shape. Monty fell off the face of the earth, unfortunately for him. Dobeš elevated to like, hey, can he just hold down the fort and kind of do a dual tandem here with Fowler to where we get to the Olympic break and after, and it's like, no, he is, from the Olympics onwards, he was one of the 7 or 8 best goalies on the planet. And so it went from like, hey, we hope he's a tandem to, hey, we want him to be a serviceable starter to, hey, the sample size is actually pretty big of him being like part of the reason they're winning. So that's something we absolutely learned for the better. I didn't have anything on Fowler, but other than to say like him next year as the backup goalie playing 30 games in the NHL, to me is going to be way more valuable than him playing 45 games in the American Hockey League. So I think that's where we're going to see him. Who knows what happens with Monty? That type of stuff, Monty, Doc, Jack-Eye, we'll tackle all of that next week. But for now, like I think you and I kind of agree on that. Okay. In terms of for the better, a couple other things I wanted to jump in on. So one is Lane Hudson. We learned this year for sure, Lane Hudson is a top 10 defenseman in the NHL. Now, some of you might be kind of annoyed by me saying that. He just finished 6th in Norris voting. He's like top 10. Come on. Norris voting, we know skews offensive. But like him too, just the levels that he has jumped over the years. It's a no doubt about it. He's a number 1 defenseman. He is one of the most elite in the NHL. He's probably going to be Norris nominated next year at this point. He's amazing. He's fantastic. So we learned that from the better. He is elite. And then the other one, so I had Dobeš went up a couple levels. Hudson went up a couple levels. The third thing we learned for the better, maybe, Ivan Demidov needs a center. The kid's amazing. He needs a center. It is conclusive to me. He needs a proper center. Yeah. Alex Newhook had a wonderful series against Buffalo, and it's making him battle for the top 5 spot for our MVP rankings this year. Absolutely. Having said that, if Alex Newhook is kind of just swimming around your middle 6, you're happy. But if he's kind of a key piece of that middle 6, it's probably not as great. Jake Evans, bless him, you need to go back to your 4th line role and be elite in that space. We need a center for Ivan Demidov. Now, whether we learned that that's for the better or not, I don't know. But what we saw Demidov elevate and continue to get better as the playoffs went on was so encouraging that get this man a center and you have a 90-point player tomorrow. I really do believe that. He's going to be more aggressive in his sophomore year. He'll be like, I've already gone through all these reps. I know what October feels like. I know what November feels like. He's going to be, I think with proper support, with a proper partner in crime, just he's ready to explode, especially after what we saw him do in the playoffs.
Yeah, 100%. Demidov played with bottom 6 centers for the entirety of the season. And he still managed to score 62 points and be the runner-up for the Calder, and sometimes bottom 6 wingers as well. Yep. So I suppose like this, to be honest, was one of my we did not get an answer to this year was who is the second line center. Because it's crucial to find one. It's so important because the player that fills that spot will also be Ivan Demidov's line mate who was sick. So who the hell knows what Ivan Demidov is capable of at 5-on-5 when he has a competent top 6 elite center, like a real second line center. It's going to be fascinating to watch because some of the stuff he was doing, playoffs and regular season, was just so spectacularly exciting. And he's still a kid, so there's so much more to come.
Okay. You mentioned we didn't get an answer to. We'll pause that for a second. I don't want to come back to it because first of all, we can just copy paste second line center year over year at this point. So, for the worst. Yeah. So what did we learn for the worst? What was we got an answer to it and we did not like it. Do you want to do the Gallagher stuff now?
I'll go first. Yeah, I definitely want to tackle this. So this one we didn't learn during the regular season. We learned it at the absolute end of the playoffs. This management and coaching team is not infallible. Mm-hmm. Listen, I know that you can't possibly please everybody all of the time. You just can't. But this is the first time that this group has so severely disappointed me, and I think a lot of other fans. There were 2 recent blunders, in my opinion, one of them major being the Gallagher thing that St. Louis, Hughes, and Gorton together made. We're going to discuss them later on, but yeah, the handling of beloved Canadiens veteran Brendan Gallagher during the playoff run, I really wasn't thrilled with. And then there was the Matthew Knies almost trade leak, which, neither of these things are good or look good for the team. And so again, welcome to the real world. The honeymoon phase is definitely over. This management and coaching group has flaws, and they make mistakes. So I think we've learned that for the worse. All of that being said, what management group doesn't make mistakes? They all do at some point or another. It just would have been nice if the very first big one that they made wasn't slighting such an important heart and soul member of this team to the point where he has to request a trade out a year from ending his career here, essentially.
Okay. We're going to put a pin in the Knies stuff. The Knies stuff deserves its own conversation, as does Brendan Gallagher.
Definitely.
So, on the Gallagher stuff. So what we learned, let's take the emotional part out of it. What we learned is Brendan Gallagher really lost the fastball this year. 2025, 21 goals, healthy, looked decent, right? Like, was an important part of the team. That third line of Dvorak and Anderson was really important. This year wasn't there. Now, what started happening towards the end of the year is Marty started to scratch him. The idea was to keep him fresh. I think we hypothesized, is this kind of a prelude to scratching him in the playoffs? Turns out it was. They scratched him for every game except games 5, 6, and 7 against Tampa. Now, I can't say that I feel strongly one way or another, whether he should have been in the lineup, because the 12th forward spot was so volatile and so poor the whole playoff run. Whether it's Veleno, whether it was Kapanen, whether it was Galley, it was the weakest spot on the roster. Jack-Eye and Struble were way less volatile than that group was. So having said that, again, I don't feel strongly about it. I do think he should have played in Game 5 against Carolina. I forget if we talked. I think at one point we mentioned you got to draw Galley. It wasn't for Game 5. I think it was earlier on. We talked about hey, it might be time to bring in Galley. Even
I think it was after Game 3.
Yeah,
and I really think Game 4 was actually the time to do it because it's a home game. So if nothing else, he at least gets to experience the Bell Center playoffs in the conference finals one last time.
Exactly. Look.
But more importantly, maybe he draws some guys into the fight. I remember saying, what animates your team more than Gallagher crashing the net? What animates your team more than Jack-Eye crushing someone in open ice or getting into a fight? Nothing. Those are the things that animate your team. And when your team is literally dead in the water, is it ridiculous to say that everybody knew what was going to happen in that series after Game 2?
Yep.
Maybe, you know what? Game 3. Let's call it Game 3 just for argument's sake. The series was 1-1 after Game 2. It became 2-1 after Game 3. I know it was overtime. Both of them were overtime, in fact. But they didn't record a shot in overtime. It was clear they were going to get steamrolled. So at that point, you have the option to either keep doing what's not working and just get pummeled, which is what happened, or you can bring in Galley and have him try and animate guys, and maybe he becomes the hero like he was in Game 5 against Tampa. His very first shift, he scored. That was massive. That was so hugely massive. That's a game they won. So, I don't know, man. We will never know what would have happened if Gallagher was brought in. What we do know is that he was not brought in and it failed. So we have the proof that what they decided did not work.
Yeah.
Would it have improved? Who the hell knows? But, this might be emotions talking, but I think you could have done the most important member in terms of tenure and emotions of this team better.
Look, it's fine that you're speaking from the heart here. We're allowed to do that on this podcast. I am confident in saying, Brian, it wouldn't have made a damn difference in game 4 or game 5. Like, but again, like, I do think, especially by the time you get to game 5, man, the writing's already on the wall with Gallagher at this point. Put him in the lineup. Put him in the lineup
exactly.
for 5.
Did Texier really help you that much in that game? Sorry, not Texier. Texier was actually decent. Did Veleno help you that much in the lineup?
Obviously not.
Did Kapanen? No. Like, you could argue that for Kapanen it was an experience thing of like one more playoff game experience, whatever. You know, you could make that argument. Veleno, I don't think you can make the argument. He's not a future member of this team. So
listen, it is what it is. Like, I would have liked to have seen it. I don't think it's really. So the weird thing was obviously at locker cleanout, Gallagher has this. He basically comes out and tells the media, "It's over for me here. I got to go somewhere else." Now, it's not management saying that. It's Gallagher saying that, which I honestly found it a bit weird for the guy that's been team first this whole time, for the guy who is pointed out, rightly so, about PK Subban being a me first guy at times. For Gallagher to do that, I found it weird that he was making it a bit about himself. But also, like, listen, like, answer this question, Brian. If he didn't have a contract next year, would Gallagher stay in the NHL? Would he get a contract?
Yeah, I think so. I think that there's a rebuilding team that happens to exist in his hometown that would probably love to have him. Or not necessarily his hometown, but like
Vancouver, Edmonton, whatever you want to call his hometown. Like, I get the
close enough.
It's fine. We played with the Vancouver Giants. He lives in the BC area now, but I think he's actually from Alberta.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter. Point is,
it doesn't matter.
Yeah, look, it's unfortunate. I don't like. I get where you're coming from, and I get where some fans are coming from with like, this feels a little Bergevin coded of like how you're kind of kicking a guy out.
Yep.
It's tough. I don't know, but like, what is not immediately clear to me, and maybe someone's reported it and I've missed it, is just like, did management go to Galley and say you're done here, or did Galley come to the conclusion on his own? Like the question I don't know what if there's an answer to is, if Gallagher hadn't come out and said that, would the presumed assumption be Gallagher can start the season next year on the Habs? Like, it's not ideal from a team. You're trying to win. Gallagher is not one of the 12 best forwards on this team. Like, right. That's the other reality to it. You can separate the, like, yeah, you probably should have drawn him in for game 4 or 5 against Carolina from a respect thing. But properly from a, like, going forward, like, he's not one of the 12 or 13 or even 15 best forwards in the organization right now that's signed to a professional contract. Then what would the management have done had Gallagher not said that out loud? Had they already talked to him at that point? Like, it gets kind of messy to me, and I hope like it didn't.
I'll let me quell it. Sorry to interrupt, but I don't think that during a playoff run they would have that type of conversation with a guy. I think that would just be kind of a noxious poison in the dressing room. If like, because all throughout you were seeing little clips of Gallagher, even though he wasn't playing, giving huge high fives to dudes, like encouraging guys, yelling like "let's go," that type of stuff the whole time. I don't think that he's that ready and willing to be amping guys up from the sidelines if he already knows what's to come. You asked if like if he had gotten into those games and there wasn't this awfulness that occurred, would he be back next year? I don't think so. I think that if he plays game 4, he goes for a little skate with his stick in the air to thank the fans after. Actually, you know what? No, he wouldn't have, because they would have been saying, no, we're going to go win game 5 and come back home for game 6. So that, you know what, I'll take that back. But I do think that the writing was on the wall for him. He doesn't belong on a team that's trying to win. It's so sad, man, that he's been through multiple rebuilds. He's been a team first guy this entire time. I do not fault him at all, by the way. You said it's weird. It is weird. But I think the weirdness is completely from the Montreal Canadiens, not from him. He's finally doing something for himself after this long. I more power to you, Gally. If we have to trade you along with a 3rd round pick to make you happy, to put you somewhere where you want to be, do it yesterday. Like, seriously, you deserve the world and more. And anyway, we don't have to dwell on this.
So here, this is the
blunder.
thing. I think the reception that a lot of people have had it's just kind of like there hasn't been people that have been like, hey, that was selfish. Because I think a lot of people are like you or like me are like, well, this just sucks. Like, that's it. That's the answer. This just sucks. This is Mr. Montreal Canadian. He's been to 3 conference finals, which I'm pretty sure, along with Price, they are the only 2 Montreal Canadiens in the last 30 years to have done that. Price went in 10, 14, and 21. Gallagher 14, 21, and 26. Now, Gallagher didn't play, but whatever, it's fine. So from like a team success standpoint,
Wow.
I'm pretty sure. I don't know. Maybe there's another guy. No, I can't imagine there's anyone that was around from 2010 that stuck around by 2021 other than Price. But so like they're the two most successful team-oriented Montreal Canadian players. It sucks that it ends like this. His agent's been allowed to talk to someone. I think he was doing an interview earlier today about like there's been discussions with Vancouver. I think they'll find something with Vancouver. The Habs might have to retain 1 or 2 million and send him out to BC. It is what it is.
Either that or Vancouver retains about 6-something million on Pettersson.
No, we're not. We can do that next week. I don't want to get into that. And it's the
Sounds
annual
good.
Elias
Sounds good.
Pettersson. It's the new PLD.
No, I
Okay.
know. That was more of a joke than anything. Just absolute last thing on Gallagher. 14 years, 911 games. That's 13th all time. That's regular season. 13th all time for the Montreal Canadiens. 246 goals is 14th all time. His highest stat in terms of like where he sits, and I know they weren't recording this for all of time, but like Lafleur and Lemaire are first and second for reference, third in shots on goal with 2,511 as a Montreal Canadian. So that's really impressive. In the playoffs, 8 years, 79 games, 14 goals, 34 points. Just the most important emotional member of this team for over a decade, and he will be sorely missed.
Okay, tough to transition out of that. In terms of what the season taught us for the worst, I have a couple others that we can go through because we've touched on some of them already. The first line at 5-on-5 in the playoffs, like, was bad.
Yeah.
Caulfield came out in the locker room clean out, said straight up, like, he's like, I sucked. Now, again, they're not telling us what happened injury-wise, but I don't think all of that can be chalked up to injuries, really. Like, I said this all in the Game 5 pod, like, so I don't want to have to rehash it all, but that wasn't good. They still scored. They still got their names on the score sheet, right? They still scored 16 goals, I think, in 19 games, those three guys. It wasn't enough at 5-on-5. And it's a bit weird that your Selke winner was a -8 in the playoffs.
Yeah.
So that was bad. We don't have to linger on that. The other thing that we need, that probably associated with this, MSL needs help on the defensive end. Look, I think he's an incredible leader. I think he's a great communicator. He's great with coaching the young guys. And I absolutely believe he is able to coach in series, coach in game, and grow with the team. Having said that, I think they need someone a bit more. I don't know if it's Alex Burrows or who, but like they need to bring someone else in. I think the penalty kill was a disaster this past year. And I think the defensive zone coverage has gotten better. But that's just because the players have gotten better. The coverage itself is still a train wreck. Give Marty help. Marty is good at so many other things, and maybe his delegation here to some of his assistant coaches is not so great. I think there needs to be a discussion to bring in the same way they got a new goalie coach in. Like they weren't afraid to make that change. So there's precedence from Hughes and Gorton to do this. So what did it teach us for the worse? Marty needs help there because that's the biggest fault on the team. It partially falls on Marty, but I do think you have to bring someone else in to help him out on that.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. It's not an entirely X and O's thing, but that is a big part of it. They happen to be playing a very complex style of defense where, depending where the puck is in the zone, you're either playing a man-to-man or you're doing zone coverage, and that's not necessarily easy to follow. So having one more person that understands that really well and potentially understands that much better than Martin St. Louis, I think would be a blessing. Allow him to focus on the offense, which was his bread and butter in the NHL. Not to say that he wasn't good defensively or didn't work hard to get back and both sides of the puck and all those things, but I think a defense first mentality would be very good. I'll do a couple as well. I have one that's kind of unserious because it doesn't mean anything for the future, but then I have a much bigger one after, but I'll do the weak one first. With the blossoming of those two goalies I talked about before, we also have the wilting of Sam Montembeault's quality of play. He went from above average to unplayable from one season to the next. And I know that from a Habs perspective, especially the fans, a lot of people would say, who cares? Seeing it as like a small price to pay for Fowler and Dobes shining so brightly this season. Like no fans are thinking of Monty right now, but I just think that's sad. It's clear as day to me that he's been surpassed. But I at least want to take this chance to thank Sam Montembeault for holding down the fort during the hectic chaos of the rebuilding Habs over the past few years. I think that a toxic thing for a young core is losing and losing badly. And I think that Monty really helped the young core see some light at the end of the tunnel as things were bad. It's hard to stay positive when you're being beaten by a touchdown night after night. And Monty Lemure kept that from happening more often than not. So just a little
Yep.
thank you to him. Best of luck in the rest of your career, wherever you end up. Hopefully this is just a hiccup for you. Thank you. We'll talk about you a little bit more later. Let's get to the real one. And this will have huge connotations moving forward. The Atlantic Division is a bloodbath. And I think we knew this already, but we learned this for the worst, certainly. It definitely consolidated that thought in my head this season. At least 7 teams will be vying for playoff positions in the Atlantic this upcoming season. Maybe 8 if Detroit can somehow magically finagle a hockey trade for Dylan Larkin. So first place in the division, or if you want to get overly optimistic, the conference should be the goal for this team in 26-27. The postseason matchups are so much easier from there. We saw Carolina cakewalk through the park all the way to the conference finals where they played an absolutely beaten down team with nothing left in the tank. Easy road to the cup final. Is that hurting them now while they play an annoyingly great Vegas team? Maybe, but I'd rather get that chance and avoid the attrition that comes with playing the better teams early. So that should be the goal. I know it's lofty, but that should absolutely be the goal next season because the amount it helps you in the postseason is crazy.
Yeah. The sad thing is that those jerks are coming back next year. They took a year off, but it looks like they're going to be fully healthy and reloaded, and the Panthers will be back to their ways. That's what frightens me the most about the Atlantic. Detroit and Toronto, I'm not worried about at all.
No.
Boston will be interesting to take a look at and see what they do over the next month or so. But Buffalo's terrifying. Tampa will remain good for a couple more years before I think the fall off happens. Ottawa, who knows? They're a bit of a wild card, but unless they move Brady Tkachuk, and even if they do move Brady Tkachuk, that'll be a hockey trade. They're going to remain competent. Florida are the killers if they walk in all of a sudden. And then you just look at the Metro and you're like, oh God, the Metro still sucks. Like Pittsburgh was the worst 2 seed I've ever seen. Like in a long time, they were awful 2 seed. Philly's fine. Philly might get a little bit better. The Devils, we've talked about it. It's fake team. Washington is
should be good.
Yeah, Washington's in the same category as Pittsburgh. We're like, well, 1 year they might be good, 1 year they might suck. Columbus has certain limitations, and depending how they feel about some of their guys coming up on contracts, they might throw in the towel. Anyways, point is, you're right. What did we learn for the worst? Yeah, the Atlantic's still the place where everyone's going to try to chop each other's heads off. And odds are the team in 6th place will have 96 points. So that sucks. What do we not get an answer to this year, Brian? So interestingly, I struggled with this one. Outside of the prospects, right? The Michael Hage question, the David Reinbacher question. Fowler, I feel like we got a good answer on. Outside of those guys, because of how long the postseason was, man, there was just like, you couldn't hide for too long. Eventually, as long as you were healthy, which again, there's an asterisk, I feel like I got a pretty good look at everybody this year. So I'm curious. Again, the first 2 names I wrote were Hage and Reinbacher because I was like, they seem to have had good seasons, but I didn't see them in the NHL. Really. I mean, I know Reinbacher played the 2, but so I'm curious. You said you had 3 answers for everything. What did you have for, what did we not actually get an answer to?
So yeah, my first is definitely David Reinbacher. Okay. He had that hand fracture in the preseason that kiboshed the start of his year, missed not that many, like 10 or so games because of that, but then he had a rather successful development year with the Rocket. Solid defensively, calm with the puck, closing gaps as he always does, and good enough to be called up to play 2 Habs games in April. He then goes back to Laval for a rather short playoff run, basically over as quick as it started. They played a total of 5 games after getting a bye to the second round, and then the Marlies ended them pretty quick. At various points of the Habs playoffs, and you heard me ask this, I wondered, where is David Reinbacher? Evidently, Martin St. Louis and the rest of the coaches did not believe him to be ready for the NHL playoffs. He ended up being a black ace, but it would be nice for Reinbacher's development saga to end with a permanent roster spot with the big club. And then that brings me to point 2 of what we didn't get an answer to this year. This isn't player specific. Really, it kind of is, but the bottom 3 defensemen, 5th, 6th, and 7th. Carrier, Struble, and Jackeye were in those spots this season, but Carrier kept having to be moved into the top 4, which in an ideal situation just flat out does not happen. And then also very little trust was vested in Jackeye and Struble, the bottom 2 lefties. Arbor and Jaden never really gained the trust of Martin St. Louis. And so I think that the bottom few defensemen just absolutely have to be a focus for Hughes and Gorton going into the offseason. They have to rectify that. I know you said that the biggest weak link was number 12 of the forwards. The next one was the 5th and 6th defenseman, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, we again, I think this is probably a better discussion for next week's episode in terms of what they do with that. It's almost too straightforward to just say Reinbacher walks in as the number 4 defenseman and takes over the Carrier spot. I've told you, I've said this multiple times. I think I said this maybe before the playoffs started and then also during the playoffs. Carrier next year in a perfect world is 6-7. That is his spot, specifically if he's 7th. That, to me, if you're Alex Carrier's your number 7 defenseman, you are a cup contending team. It is that quality of defense that brings you to the top. Now, there's a lot of stuff you have to do with that. There's the Jack Struble stuff. We can get into it. Fair point. Yeah. I think we, again, copy-pasted it from last year. I think it was Jack v. Struble was one of the unanswered questions from last year. To me, again, we'll save a lot of this for next week, but like Jack I's played 230 games in the NHL regular season and another 15 or 16 probably in the postseason. Like, he's had a good run. It's not that the sample size is too small here, but I said it a few months back. I'm not really a believer anymore. Like, there's times where it does work and you do see it, but again, like, the sample at this point is almost 250 professional hockey games in the NHL. We'll see. So yeah, okay. Anything else in this like general overview before we dive into other stuff?
I mean, we glanced at it. We don't have to do a lot on it, but the one that keeps coming back is second line center. Yeah. That's still a massive question mark. It's a problem, honestly, that a lot of NHL teams have. So filling the spot becomes that much harder because you can't trade for centers, right? To quote our favorite GM ever.
You can't. It's really hard. And look, I will say, to the credit of both Kent Hughes and Marc Bergevin, they've tried, both of them, in different ways. Bergevin just kept drafting centers, and they just all sucked. Or, like, we're all bottom side. Like, McCarron's a 4th line center. Ryan Paling's a 4th line center. Like, Kotkaniemi's not a NHLer. Like, Alex Galchenyuk was never a center. Like, he drafted a lot of first-round picks, and we have some stuff on the Habs first-rounders in a bit, but, like, he drafted a lot of centers. He's like, this is the only way I can get him. Now, Kent Hughes, on the other hand, is like, I can trade for centers. Traded for Kirby Dach, traded for Alex Newhook. Varying degrees of success. Those guys are bottom 6 centers for sure. There's argument for Newhook as a second line winger. But it's tough. It's still unanswered. Michael Hage is the biggest, maybe along with a certain Alex Jurovsky, the biggest wild card at this point in the franchise. Because there's such it's being way too dramatic saying a 20-year-old who might end up being the 7th best guy on the team holds a lot of weight in terms of like the direction of the franchise. But if you're a serviceable second line center, then yeah, kind of does. Because that's the one true missing piece left. There's other stuff we've talked about that is missing. I think there's another winger in the top 6 needed. We said there's 1 or 2 defensemen they still need. The bottom 6, they didn't really figure it out this year, consistently enough at least. But 2C forever, man. At least it's not 1C. That's all I can say.
Yeah. At least it's not 1C. Thank you, Captain Nick, for that blessing.
Okay. Let's that was fun. That was a good primer. Let's get into some of the odds and ends. So Knies and Larkin. Let's dive into that. Let's start with Matthew Knies. That's the more useful conversation, truthfully. So, as the story goes, everyone knows it by now. The much rumored, which is fascinating. I will say, like, the reporting on this, I have a theory, but the reporting on this has been really interesting. So the Hughes comes out after the trade deadline, says, "Man, we were close on something," and I even kind of made fun of him. They've been like, okay, buddy. Sure he did. Right. And then the initial rumor was Knies, and everyone was like, no, it wasn't Knies, like reporters. And then Dave Pagnotta a week or so ago was like, actually, it was Matthew Knies. And the reported package was 2 firsts, Alex Jurovsky, and a prospect. Later confirmed by Elliot Friedman, and then Marco D'Amico jumped in after he did his own reporting and said the other prospect was one of Bryce Pickford or Adam Engstrom. So not Hage, not Reinbacher, not Fowler. That most importantly, right?
Yeah.
And apparently the reason this trade didn't go through was because it was submitted at 3:01 p.m. Which, okay, that's a little like too cute, was written like script for Hollywood to me, but whatever. We'll get into why this, like our favorite June game of who leaked this and who this benefits. But before we get into the weird stuff, Brian, would you have liked this trade if it had happened in March? 2 firsts, Jurovsky, and let's say Engstrom for Matthew Knies. What would you have thought?
What's coming in is phenomenal. Cost controlled for a very long time. It fits perfectly into the cap structure that the Montreal Canadiens currently have, like very similar to the other top 6 forwards. A power forward, a guy who gives a shit, like he quickly becoming the heart and soul of the Leafs, honestly. And I cannot believe they would even consider parting with him. And now that they have the first overall pick and they're planning on running it back, the opportunity is likely lost. I know that people are still saying, like, well, we're going to revisit this that was prior to them getting the first overall, and they're going to get one of the best playmakers of the past 10 years out of the draft, a peripheral guy. So what does that mean? You need a guy who crashes. Oh, wait, that's Matthew Knies. Like, the one blemish about Matthew Knies was that he couldn't find Matthews. He's not Marner. He's not going to find Matthews. Oh, you found a guy who's not necessarily a massive dude who's not big, but he's the perfect playmaker. That's the trio of, like, it's Slavkovsky, Caulfield, Suzuki. Different profiles, granted, completely different profiles. But in terms of having like one sniper, and that sniper for the Leafs also happens to be very good two-way. One big dude and one playmaker. Like that's basically what you've got. So missed opportunity. In terms of what we were giving up, I have my doubts about Jurovsky. Skill-wise, he's phenomenal. Rookie of the year in the KHL, by the way. Like, congrats, dude. That's awesome. I have my doubts how much it'll translate to the NHL because, yes, his hands are great, but he doesn't have the open foot shiftiness that Demidov has that allows him to escape checks. So I worry that he's very narrow. He's a thin guy. I don't know how long it would take. The two firsts, you know what, man? What's our first this year? We made the conference final. It's one of the last four. So, okay, enjoy the 28th pick because I do believe this team is going back there. And then the defensemen, we have too many. So if that's what it took, like if you're going to overpay for something, Knies was a reasonable thing to do. And the most fascinating wrinkle to me is that this package could have been used to get a second line center. Everybody's been saying that. Like this isn't breaking new ground, me saying that. But what I think is really interesting is, does that tell you what it told me, which is that they really believe in Hage? They really think Hage is the real deal because otherwise they would have done the center thing at the deadline and Hage next year.
So you and I have not talked about this in any capacity. So I didn't know where you would stand on this. You don't know where I stand on this. So this is very exciting for me. I really thought you were going to walk in here and say, thank goodness they didn't do it. That would have been a crazy overpay. I don't like this at all. And I want to come back to the Hage stuff because I think that's really interesting. Man, if this trade would have happened, I would have laughed for an hour. This would have been highway robbery from Ken Hughes and Jeff Gordon. Highway robbery. I know there's people who are really against it. There's a lot of people who have, and these are the same people that like don't want to trade a Bryce Pickford. Like, calm down. This man is 23 years old. He is 1 year older than Juraj Slavkovsky. He's under cost control. He is, what have I been saying the last month or so? They need 2 more top 6 guys. One of those is going to be a winger. If they had actually pulled this off, this would have been the heist of the century, man. I really believe that. 2, we're going to get into the first round picks in a couple minutes. I have a lot of research we're going to dump on people. 2 first round picks ain't a big deal. Jurovsky is the swing piece. He is the centerpiece, truthfully. Engstrom, perfectly fine. We think high end, he's a second pairing guy. The Habs have Caden Gooley, Lane Hudson, Mike Matheson, Noah Dobson, potentially David Reinbacher. They already have Jack Ian Struble. You know, they have Alex Carrier. Like, there's enough guys on the team. Pickford or Engstrom, you lose one of them, you have the other. Like, that's fine. Jurovsky is the swing piece, and I will be the first to say I've definitely not watched enough Alex Jurovsky to have a strong understanding and opinion of how good he is. When you and I have talked about him in the past, when we did our player value rankings, I kind of had him a little low. I think I had him like 17th or 18th or 19th. I had him separate tier from the Reinbacher, Fowler, Hage crew. Yeah. He was significantly below those guys. Those guys were like all like 8 to 12 or something like that. Whereas Jurovsky was in the high teens. Everything we've heard about Jurovsky is so far as the kid's wickedly talented, but a bit slender in frame. And the fact that the ability for him to translate to the NHL is certainly in question in terms of specifically as a top 6 guy. I might sound like an idiot 3 years from now if he puts up 70 points and he's a consistent producer, but like, what if Matthew Knies is, there's no what if with Matthew Knies. He is that.
Yeah.
So I think, anyways, on the Hage stuff, that's a bang on point you made. I hadn't thought of that. Because, yes, they do need a center. And a lot of people are saying, well, hey, this is the package you should throw around for Dylan Larkin. Sure. Larkin, we can touch on Larkin in like 10 minutes. But, like.
Oh, great. Is Montreal magically in the States with no tax?
Okay, yeah. I don't want to. Stupid. What a weenie.
Yeah, by the way, just for the listeners who don't get to see our notes. Oh, no, you tweeted this, actually. It wasn't even on our notes. You tweeted this out that Dylan Larkin's a weenie.
Is. Yeah, big weenie. Shout out to Encore. So I've lost my train of thought. Michael Hage, yes.
Hage, yeah.
That's a great point you made. The fact that they were willing to do this shows their belief in Hage. And I also wonder if at that time they're like, well, Hage is going to be here in 6 weeks. Like, I wonder if they at
that's
that
true.
point they're like,
that news hadn't dropped
he's
yet.
going to sign, and then boom, that's the top 6 is revamped for the playoffs. Who knows? But you're right. It does, to me, continue to show how highly they value. Because I'm sure you could just do that trade as well and save a first. And like, you probably can, like, if like, what's the value of Michael Hage in that trade? Like, if you add Hage, how much do I get to remove?
It's at least the 2 firsts.
Yeah. So
it's at least the 2
So that
firsts.
shows you how much they value Michael Hage right now.
Yeah.
Great point. Okay. On the reporting stuff, why did this leak? Favorite game of the year, right? Who leaked what?
I'm dying to hear this.
My theory. I've pitched this publicly. Some people have pushed back, but the people that have pushed back are the ones that don't think this was a good trade for the Habs. And I think that's a crucial fact in terms of your understanding of this. So since you kind of agree with me, let's see. So we go back to the trade deadline, and it's Keith Pelly of the Toronto Maple Leafs. I don't even know if it was the trade deadline. I think this was their end of year. Anyway, sometime in March or April, Keith Pelly, president of the Toronto Maple Leafs, does a press conference, and he names David Reinbacher, Michael Hage in his press conference. That's a big no-no. You don't name other players who are not in your franchise.
Well, to be fair, he didn't name them. He named guys who sound like them, because I believe he said Michael Hagee.
Yeah, okay. Fair enough. So we knew who he was trying to talk about. And that's a big no-no. You don't do that. The Habs, immediately there was a report like the Habs were pretty pissed off about that. So fast forward to June 1st, and Kent Hughes and Jeff Gorton are talking to the media. And I believe it was Jeff Gorton who kind of out of nowhere, unprovoked, was like, this isn't like a Marner in Toronto situation. You know, we don't want the one-offs of suddenly this guy is good. Completely unprovoked brings up the Leafs. 100% that's a shot back across. 100%, man. They were pissed that they brought up Michael Hage, so they just sniped back. Like, are you telling me it's an accident 48 hours later when Toronto has new management, they leak who was part of the trade package? Of course not. Everyone knew it was already Knies. We had no idea who was on the Montreal side. It's not an accident that 2 days after Jeff Gordon talks about the Marner stuff in Toronto, that immediately it leaks. Okay, you know what? This was the trade package. Alex Jarofsky. That's my theory. It's a little war of words between one competent franchise and one floundering franchise. What do you think?
That's fascinating. The switch of leadership group for the Toronto Maple Leafs, like of those people in charge, is the wrinkle that I think lends itself to this being true. Because if it's the same group, why on earth would they ever let Matthew Knies know, like, convincedly that he's on the block? That would never ever happen. But if it's a new group saying, hey, the old group had him on the block, but we're not interested in that, like, literally all they have to do is call up Matthew and be like, dude, they were idiots. You are a franchise piece forever. We love you so much. You're not going anywhere. Problem solved. Mm-hmm. And then they can release the stuff. Doesn't hurt that. You know what, man? You might be right on the money. Because it definitely didn't benefit the Canadians for this to drop.
No, it didn't.
Absolutely not. So I'm curious to see what the fourth thing is. These things are cyclical, and we'll see if Team Hugo has enough. The shackles are on strong enough for them not to say something else stupid and just have this run amok. But we'll see. I think I don't know much about the new, like, John Chayka, the new GM of the Maple Leafs. I don't really know that much about him. Young as hell, didn't have that much success where he was earlier, but like, if he has even a quarter of a decent brain in his head, he will not trade Matthew Knies. So once again, I say I think this is over. I don't think that this is going to be revisited. If it does, great. I'll be over the moon. But I think it's over. I agree.
I think the moment has passed. I think that's why it leaked too. I think these guys were like, I don't care if it leaks because it wasn't our decision to trade him. Okay, on the first round pick stuff, because I saw a lot of consternation about first round picks, and I see it every year about like, no, we got it. Not even just the first round picks, about like, hey, we just drafted this guy, we got to keep him. There's a lot of value in this. I don't want to trade the future yet. You know, it's not worth it. So I did a thing that I think I've been teasing for like at least a year at this point. I looked at how good teams use their first round picks. And it's going to pain us to say it, but we're going to talk about Vegas and Florida and Tampa to a lesser extent. Vegas comes online in 2017. In 2017, they have 3 first-round picks. It's a bit of an anomaly. That's when they were in asset accumulation mode after the expansion draft, right? So Cody Glass, Nick Suzuki, Eric Branstrom are the 3 first-round picks that they have. Obviously, basically none of those guys ever play for the Vegas Golden Knights. Cody Glass is traded for Nolan Patrick in a nothing burger of a deal 2 years later. Nick Suzuki obviously traded a year later for Max Pacioretty, a win-now player. Eric Branstrom is traded in 2019 for Mark Stone. All right, so 2017, their first-round picks essentially net them Pacioretty and Stone. Not bad.
It's not bad. Stone especially. Very
2018, they trade their first-round pick as a future as part of a package for Tomas Tatar. Not too bad. 2019, they draft Peyton Krebs. We'll come back to that one. 2020, a player named Brandon Brisson. He's eventually traded for a nothing burger. That's a huge flop. 2021, Zach Dean is drafted. 2 years later, he is traded for Ivan Barbashev. 2022, this is the big one. That first round pick as a future, along with Peyton Krebs, is used, who is now Peyton Krebs is D+2 at this point, traded for Jack Eichel. 2023, you draft David Edstrom, and a year later, you trade him for Thomas Hertl. 2024 is Trevor Connolly. He is the only first round pick still in the organization. 2025 is traded as a package for Tomas Hertl. That's the David Edstrom pick from earlier as well. 2026 pick is traded as a package for Noah Hannafin, and 2027 first round pick is traded as a package for Rasmus Anderson. So if we look at Vegas Golden Knights, who have been to now 3 Stanley Cup finals, have won one, or halfway towards the other. They also have a conference finals there against the Habs. Like, as much as we hate them, as much as they're complete jerks and misogynistic and just complete assholes, they have ran their team competently. Look how they've used their first round picks. Traded for Tatar, traded for Jack Eichel, Noah Hannafin, Thomas Hertl, Rasmus Anderson, Ivan Barbashev, like
Jack Eichel,
Mark Stone, like
that's 12 of 13 traded,
and
11 years, but in year 1 they had 3.
And they are traded either as futures or within a couple years. Those guys are moved. Peyton Krebs is moved in 2 years. Zach Dean is moved in 2 years. David Edstrom is moved in a year. So it's not just trading them as futures; it's trading them within a year or two. When we get to the Habs,
you know what that is? That's magic beans are more attractive than a known commodity. A lot of people would take a lottery pick worth $2. Not at NHL. I'm just talking a human being would take a lottery card worth $2, thinking they could win $1 million, over somebody handing them $50.
Yeah, I think crucially with Vegas, they have a 2-year window that they deal with. Of we either traded this as a future, or we have 2 years, which is typically for CHL and NCAA players when you're ready to make the jump, when those magic beans have to go to the AHL or training camp in the NHL. And then it's much like, oh, wait, this guy's only this, whatever. Because if you look at it, Brandstrom's traded after 2 years, Krebs is traded after 2 years, Dean is traded after 1 year, Edstrom is traded after 1 year. We'll keep this in mind. This is the Vegas model. Florida Panthers. Now, Florida Panthers, crucially, Bill Zito takes over in 2020. I still went as far back as 2017 because some of those picks are moved later on. 2017, they draft Owen Tippett. In 2022, when Zito is there, so it's 5 years later, along with a 2024 first round pick, they trade for Claude Giroux. So it's way in the future. It doesn't really work out, but that's what they do with it. 2018, they draft someone, they waive them, it doesn't matter. 2019, they draft Spencer Knight. Later on in 2025, they trade Spencer Knight along with a first round pick for Seth Jones. 2020, Anton Lundell. You ain't moving that guy, or are you? 2021, Mackie Samoskevich. And then the gauntlet they've ran. 2022, traded for Sam Reinhart. 2023, traded for, ironically, Ben Sherratt. The Habs are in here a lot. 2024 is the Tippett add-on with Claude Giroux. 2025, obviously, is the mega trade with Matthew Tkachuk. They own their stupid 2026 first-round pick because of the trade protections that no one knew about, and they've already traded their 27 first for Brad Marchand. So these guys, too, what are they doing? So they're even more aggressive with it. Now, they recognize something with Lundell. They've recognized something with Samoskevich, and those guys are on the roster and very much contributing. Beyond that, especially in these last 5 years, they're throwing that thing out the door as soon as they can, right?
Yeah. Windows open, let's go now.
But like, they're, instead of it's like magic beans, it's like, I'm going to trade for something that exists, for something that is real. So I'm not like throwing away my future. No, I'm trading for Sam Reinhart in 2022. I'm trading for Matthew Tkachuk in 2025, or Tkachuk's technically a bit earlier. But like, I'm still trading for guys. Now, the Marchand one's the weirder one because he's like 36. But most of these guys, and even if you go to the Eichel or Hertl or Tatar, like you're trading for guys 26, 25, 29, 30. Like, no, they're not like perfectly in you're the preferred age curve, maybe, but like that you are going to get more value out of that first round pick with a known commodity than, especially if you're a good hockey team. The most overrated thing in this league is a good team's first round pick. It really holds too much value when it doesn't. And these two smart, annoying teams have figured that out. Not as obvious, and I didn't go in as much detail for this, is obviously Tampa. Tampa over the past 10 years has traded 7 first round picks, and it has netted them Ryan McDonough, JT Miller, Brandon Hagel, David Savard, Oliver Bjorkstrand, Yanni Gourde, and hilariously Tanner Jeannot. Now, Tampa's has been a little more miss than hit, but still in there is Brandon Hagel and yoinking him from the Blackhawks for 2 first round picks. They paid for him. But again, like, what has Tampa done in these 10 years? Well, they've won 2 Stanley Cups. They've been to another final. Yeah. They're still a really damn good team. This is what really good teams do with their first round picks. It is not only about nailing the draft and waiting for this guy to become perfect. It is also about, like, what if I just trade for a known guy? What if I just trade for a definite NHLer? Then who cares about the picks, right? And these aren't short-term deals. Yeah. Look at all these guys that are getting traded for. Part of you needs to have the confidence in, like, we can re-sign this guy if they're about to come up. And it's not always been the case. David Savard left Tampa Bay. But obviously, in terms of like Sam Reinhart, he's still there in Florida, of Tatar, of Jack Eichel. Like, some of these moves, or Noah Hannafin's probably a good example too, of like, well, we're going to make sure this guy sticks around. And in which case, I didn't trade my first round pick for a rental. I traded my first round pick for a 27-year-old who I'm now going to sign to a 7-year contract. So, point is, like, this is how the best teams use their first round picks. Brian, what are your thoughts on this before we dive into what the Habs have been doing for 20 years?
Let me throw some stats your way, buddy. I don't know what you would constitute a successful NHL season. I think making it at all is phenomenal. But if you look at the 25th overall NHL draft pick, which that's right in the crux of like a good team who's contending. Maybe you got knocked out early. That sucks. Whatever. It's top 8 in terms of the regular season. So 85% of 25th overall NHLers play 1 game. If you want 100 games, that drops to 56%. If you want 300 or more, that drops to 38%. Wow. And it keeps dropping from there. 1,000 games is 3.6%. Like, that's more obvious. But what this is saying is that, and that's 25th. We're not talking about 30th. 30th, it's even lower, obviously. Like, when you get down to the bottom of the first round, there's no sure things anymore. A guy could look incredible on paper, and then you get him onto NHL ice, and it's no, this isn't going to work. This isn't going to work. Which brings us to
the Habs. So again, Habs. part of it too is looking at just one last thing on Vegas and Florida. You look at their rosters now, and it's like, okay, well, Jack Eichel's there, Thomas Hertl's there, Noah Hannafin's there, Rasmus Anderson's there. You look at
they're all still there.
They're all still there, right?
Yeah.
You're not just tossing a first round pick out the window, like.
Is the rental model over?
It should be. It's stupid.
I'm fascinated by that question. It's really dumb.
Idiotic.
I agree that
you
it's
shouldn't
really
trade
dumb.
a first round pick for Ryan O'Reilly. You shouldn't trade a first round pick for Justin Falk. You shouldn't be doing this. You need to, now again, part of it is you need to have confidence in the ability to re-sign some of those guys, but not all of them have to be expiring deals. And obviously, like the one that we're kind of building up to is Noah Dobson. Obviously, 2 first round picks and Emil Heineman signed immediately. You got your 8-year guy. He's on the team. That's a great usage of a first round pick. You just didn't draft the guy at 18. You traded for him at 25 with those first round picks. And then you look at Florida as well, right? Like Brad Marchand, Matthew Tkachuk, Sam Reinhart, Seth Jones, like all guys started traded for. They're on the team, right? Okay, the Habs. Let's do. I went since the 2005 lockout, and it's about tracking what a first round pick does for you. Carey Price 2005 can't get any better than that. It's the best draft pick they've made in 50 years. Maybe Lane Hudson will contend with that. 2006 is David Fisher. Plays 4 years, never makes it to the NHL. Nothing. Complete nothing burger. 07's 2 first round picks. Now, one of them is from the Craig Rive trade, which is hilarious. We'll get to that. Their actual pick is Ryan McDonough. We know what happened to that. Thank you, Scott Gomez. So Ryan McDonough turns into like 3 years of Scott Gomez, and then poof, vanished. Your first round pick by January 2013 is nothing. It's gone. The other one's Pacioretty. Pacioretty obviously becomes Nick Suzuki. And congrats to everybody involved. 2008, they trade it for Alex Tanguay. He has 1 year left on his deal. He's very average and he walks. Poof. 1 year. 1 year. Your first round pick is dead.
Brutal. And
that 2009 team got swept in the first round by the Sabres. Not the Sabres, the Bruins. 2009, Louis LeBlanc. We've talked about this many, many times. They hold on to Louis LeBlanc for 6 years. He's never really an NHLer. They trade him for a 5th round pick. So remember when we were talking about Vegas, the players that they did draft, their window seemed to be about 2 years. 6 years. They held on to Louis LeBlanc too long. 5th rounder, poof, nothing burger. Jared Tenorti, traded for essentially nothing. 6 years later, poof, gone. Nathan Beaulieu, you get a couple years out of Beaulieu at least, I will say, compared to Tenorti and LeBlanc. Traded for a 3rd round pick in 2017. Again, 6 years later, poof, gone. So there's a reason that teams started to suck all of a sudden, because you're just blowing your most valuable asset, your 1st round pick. Okay, 2012, they've done better with this one. Alex Galchenyuk, they get 6-7 good years out of Galchenyuk. They see it starting to go sideways. Trade him for Max Domi. Max Domi gets traded into Josh Anderson. So that pick, you're now on year 14 of that pick. That's an excellent usage.
Yeah, technically.
Excellent usage of a 1st round pick, especially when you kind of botched. Look, it would have been better if you just drafted Philip Forsberg, honestly, but I'm not going to be picky. At least there's something. All right, the lean years, again, which is part of the reason this team started to suck at the end of the 2010s. Michael McCarron, held on to for 7 years, traded for Laurent Dauphin, nothing, poof, gone. Nikita Sherbak, 2014 draft pick, waivers in 2018, poof, gone. Noah Juleson, 2015 1st round pick, placed on waivers in 2019, poof, gone. Have you found out the fucking pattern yet? 2016, Mikhail Sergachev. Sadly, this one defeats the pattern because they nailed the pick. Traded for...
This sucks, dude. Can we wrap? I hate this. I hate this so much. Oh my
traded
God.
for Drouin. Drouin, again, like, terrible, but he leaves after his contract. So 7 years, 8 years, where he left in 2023 or 24, I forget. Poof, gone. So even that pick, your best 1st round pick, in a span of between, I don't know, like, is he better than Galchenyuk? Probably, maybe slightly. Between Pacioretty and Caulfield. So 2008 through 2018, 11 years. Your 2 best picks are Galchenyuk and Sergachev in terms of the quality of player. The Galchenyuk one, you did what you could. You're still benefiting with Josh Anderson. Sergachev one, you throw into the garbage, and then poof, it's gone. The asset's gone. Ryan Poehling. Now look, if you squint hard enough, you can convince me Ryan Poehling is now Mike Matheson. Not really.
Okay.
It's really Jeff Petrie is what became Mike Matheson, but Poehling's part of that trade. So I can give you that one. 18, another just devastating one. Obviously, Kotkaniemi, 1st and the 3rd out the door, basically is replaced with that exact package. I think more actually. Christian Dvorak, 4 years of Christian. Your 3rd overall pick in 2018 by the end of the 2025 season is poof, gone. It's over. Like, this is terrible. So like, you are retaining these guys the whole time. We see in this whole stretch here, the Habs trade 1 1st round pick, and it's for Alex Tanguay, which is one of their worst trades. It's a nothing burger after nothing burger because you hold on to these assets for too long, and it's poof, gone. There's nothing. The tide turns in 19. Obviously, Caulfield's on the team in 19. Gooley's at the pick in 2020. Logan Mailloux, man, they were walking down this door. And what do? They trade him for Zach Bolduc. So now 2021, your 1st round pick, which was 31st, has now become Zach Bolduc. I think you've elevated. And then beyond that, 2022, obviously, it's Slav's on the team. Mishar, wavering. We'll see what happens. Reinbacher in 23. Your other pick in 23, which I know you trade for, so it's a bit iffy, but you trade your 1st round pick and an early 2nd for Alex Newhook. 24 is Demidov and Hage. We'll see. And then 25 is obviously traded for Noah Dobson. We're starting to see a bit of a shift there, right? We're trading for Alex Newhook. We're trading for Noah Dobson. So beyond being depressed, Brian, what have you learned from the Habs part of this exercise?
Don't hold on to assets too long.
Yeah.
They wilt and they fade away and they become less attractive to other teams. Even Logan Mailloux, had they pulled the trigger a year prior, they might have gotten something better than Zach Bolduc. Yep. In fact, I think they would have. So it's a steady downward trajectory. I think the inverse is like they're applying the inverse strategy of what they should. Like if you have a 5th round pick that becomes Brendan Gallagher, now he has trade value when he had none as a 5th. When you have Jake Evans become the player that he is, now he has value when he had none as a 7th. They're applying that logic on a 3rd overall pick, Alex Galchenyuk, a 3rd overall pick. Well, they never had the chance to trade Kotkaniemi, but like that was a waste. So yeah, it's not great. I will say that it's really not great. I do hear the argument of like, yeah, these are like Tenorti, whatever, McCarron, Sherback, Jolson. None of these were that high. None of them were in the top 10 or anything like that. You know, some 26s, some 22s. Who gives a crap? There are some GMs out there who see first round pick and their mouth starts salivating. So take advantage.
Do you think Zach Dean had that much value when Vegas traded them for Ivan Barbashev or David Edstrom as part of a package for Tomas Hertl? No, that's the point. By the way, like in terms of like the late round, like the trade trees, one fun one I did during the playoffs was Yaroslav Halak. So Halak is a 9th round pick in 2003, who was eventually traded for Lars Eller, who was eventually traded for 2 second-round picks, one of which becomes Jordan Harris. Jordan Harris is traded for Patrick Laine in a second. The second becomes Phil Deneau. So Yaroslav Halak became Phil Deneau and Patrick Laine. Amazing stuff.
That's crazy.
Anyways, point is, 2 first-round picks.
Yeah.
Who cares? If you're a good, now the caveat, of course, is be a good hockey team first. Which, by the way, success. Check mark. Check. We did it.
Yeah, they're there.
Look what the best teams are doing. It's this. They have figured out a market inefficiency, which is people overvalue the word first round pick, or term first round pick, I should say. Also, if you have guys 1 or 2 years after they're drafted, that's the time to move them. Now, again, age is a bit different, it seems. But going forward, like, we've seen how much Hughes has already started to dabble in this. Like, as we get closer to the draft, don't be shocked. But, like, moving your first round picks is not, I feel like there's a perception of moving first round picks as, like, win now or, like, short sighted. They don't have to be. If you're trading for the right guys, the rental, you're right. The idea of a first round pick going out for a rental is asinine. And I don't think we have a GM that will do something that idiotic. But again, like, follow the first round picks. You get a new one every year. Trading it for an established player who has contract, like a Matthew Knies, it's a fantastic use of that. Okay. We're starting to go along. We got a lot to still go to. You want to do some Larkin stuff? I don't think it'll take too long, but yeah.
Very, very, very fast. Let's do it.
Okay. Look, he's requested a trade. He has 5 years left on his contract. Going to be 30 years old. Early reports where he wanted to go to Tampa, Dallas, or Minnesota. Newer reports are saying Minnesota, Vegas, Florida. It's not, as far as I can tell, been officially reported like this. Everyone's kind of spoken around it, but I think the large belief is he would have no interest playing in Canada, which, okay, cool. So the Habs perspective of this, which is why we don't have to talk about this for too long. Don't think the Habs can go after it. I also think the Habs would be in a tough spot because I don't know what type of, like, it's interesting because Yzerman needs to keep his job, so he can't really trade for a futures package. You also have Seider and Raymond, who are like, what are you going to tell Moritz Seider, who I'm presuming whether this jerk is on your team or not, you're going to strip him of the C. Do it, by the way. You don't have to wait to trade him to strip him. Give Seider the C already. Anyways.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know what you can tell those guys and say, hey, we're trading for some 16-year-olds. So between that and the fact that Yzerman probably can't afford a retool puts them in a tough spot where I think they want NHLers more willing to get NHLers. And I don't know if the Habs are in a good spot for that. The Habs are more in that, you saw what they offered for Knies. I don't know if that entices Yzerman again, because Yzerman kind of needs to fight for his job right now. But it's moot anyway, because he's not waving.
No, the only thing that he's not waving, the only thing that fits here really is his play style and his caliber and his contract. Like, Larkin would be a great fit on the Montreal Canadiens stylistically. He's responsible. He's very skilled. He scores 30 goals. Like, he's a very good player, Dylan Larkin. He's a great leader. Quickly falling off a cliff in that regard. Yeah. But I get it too. Like, the frustration of having been in the league. He's been in the league, 13, 14 years. He made it to the playoffs.
Rookie year.
One of his rookie year. Okay. I knew it was only 1 year. Rookie. Oh my God, man! This how similar is this to Carey Price having a point per game player in his rookie year and never again? Like, I feel for him. So anyway, the fit exists. I doubt he wants it. I doubt Yzerman will do it. The Habs don't have that type of package ready. It's futures. So I do think it's moot. I think you're right. There are other guys though. Do you have anything else on Larkin? Because there was another guy we were going to look at.
Okay, so let me tell you the package that makes too much sense, and I hate that I figured this out, which means everyone else has figured this out. It's Lundell in the 9th pick.
No. Oh, no.
It makes too much sense.
Oh, I don't want Florida to get stronger, even though Lundell is phenomenal.
We just went through the exercise where they trade all their first-round picks. They have the 9th pick in the draft.
Yeah, it just took a little bit longer.
It makes a lot of sense, man. They're both centers. They're both under contract. You're throwing in more because Larkin's the better player.
That's not enough for Yzerman to keep his job.
But it helps him in terms of it's a replacement level. You slot him into the same spot. You put Lundell in a higher position. And also, like, all these guys, if you look at Minnesota, if you look at Florida, if you look at Tampa, and all these guys got no moves, no trade. I'm not waving to go to Detroit when I'm in the good spot. Lundell doesn't have that.
Fair.
Lundell does not have any trade protections. So I hate how that's the most realistic trade. The other one, which maybe this is going to feed into the guy you want to talk about next, is Minnesota is one of the teams. Now, if Minnesota, their main package would have to include Wallstad or Gus, probably, right? I don't know their prospects well enough. I don't know, again, if who knows if Detroit needs another damn goalie, but whatever. Maybe they make it a 3-team trade and someone else, maybe they squeeze another team in. Who cares? Point is, if Larkin goes to Minnesota and we get like a week past July and there's no extension announced for Quinn Hughes, you just got to wonder if there's enough of like the brothers in his ear about like, I know you're having a great time, but the plan was for all of us to play together in New Jersey. And if Larkin's coming over, that's $9 million being eaten up by the cap. That means Quinn Hughes might want to head over to New Jersey. Now, if he's heading over to New Jersey, there might be a bit of a cap crunch there. And there might be a guy in New Jersey who also needs a new contract that might. Is that where you were going?
Not within that specific context. I'm still looking at this through a Habs lens, and I remember being in the building a few years ago playing against the Devils and seeing just how good in person, watching the speed of Nico Hischier's processing, and just being like, this is one of the best two-way centers I've ever seen, and I would love to have him. So I was thinking more in that context. That's a fascinating kind of three-way multiple trade.
It's not even like a trade thing. It's more like if Quinn Hughes wants to keep the dream alive of going to the Devils, he can obviously tell his brothers that, and the Devils can tell management that. That's not illegal. It's illegal for the Devils GM to go talk to Quinn Hughes. It's not illegal for the brothers to talk to each other, right? Like, people always screw this up with tampering.
Yeah.
Players are allowed to talk to each other and make plans. It's once management gets involved, it becomes tampering. So what if, like, okay, they made the second round, whatever. What if the plan is still, after they hang out all again this summer, of like, we still want to play together? So what if the plan is Jersey has to make sure they're preparing a trade package, which I don't think would include Nico Hischier. But what if it's like, we got to make sure we have 17 million cap space to sign Quinn Hughes when he walks in next year? And at that point, whether Hischier is just like, I'm out of here, this is getting weird, or Hischier's just like, I want to get paid 14 million too. Like, I want my money as well.
Yeah.
That's the only universe where it is reasonable for New Jersey to let Nico Hischier go anywhere. Otherwise, it is a fireable offense for Nico Hischier to get traded or hit the open market. What are you doing? Like, I know we talk about it. You and I brought up Hischier like 4 or 5 months ago. I was like, hey man, like let's bring him. It's beyond fireable if you let a player like that leave your franchise, unless the guy walking through the door is Quinn Hughes. That's where I understand it.
Yeah, and I mean, even Hischier's not enough for Quinn Hughes. Let's be real. But if that's the start of the package,
it's not even a trade. It's just
somewhere.
the fact that like Hughes has to come in, and Nico Hischier either feels pushed out from a like fit standpoint, like a culture standpoint, or from a money standpoint. Yeah. It's more that than like a trade 1-for-1 or like a 6-team trade or something. It's more, you know what I mean? It's more that aspect of it. Like, hey, crap, we got to make sure we have cap space when we let Quinn Hughes. Like, the smartest way for the Devils to play it is just to say, we're not going to trade stuff. We're going to let Quinn walk to us in free agency in 27, and we're so much better. But in the meantime, your captain's going to want a contract extension. And do you piss him off enough to the point where he's like, all right, guys, get me out of here? Anyways.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard both sides. I've heard they're nowhere close, and I've heard other reporting that says, no, they're close. So I don't know what to think on the Hischier thing. I think until something is concrete, we won't know. But anyway, from a Habs perspective, that'd be sick.
Yep.
But I think you're right. The Devils still think they're great, and they would want something massive coming back. So unless you want to say goodbye to Nick Suzuki, Cole Caulfield, Juraj Slafkovsky, Lane Hudson, Michael Hage, Ivan Demir, like one of the top-end players, you're not getting Hischier.
Yeah,
likely.
like, don't worry. We're going to put together fake trade packages for Nico Hischier in the coming weeks. I'm just saying, realistically, right now, that is a pragmatic approach for New Jersey. The only way I'm letting Nico Hischier walk, like trading him or letting him go, is because I need to make space for Quinn Hughes on my team. Which, by the way, not a bad, like, that's not terrible, but like it's very delicate. Anyways, anything else before we get into the Habsland MVP?
No, let's get into it. We've done an hour 15 already.
Okay.
We'll move this thing along for the good
Nice and
listeners.
tight, nice and tight. Okay. Brian and I were kind of mentioning like before we like started recording that it's felt like over the years we've really had to dress up the off season, partially because the off season used to basically start in January because the team was terrible.
Yeah.
And then even last year, nice little playoff run, but they gave us 5 extra games of hockey. We still had a lot of time to fill up. We were blessed enough this year to get hockey till the end of May. Our first off-season episode is the second week of June, so we don't need to spend as much time on this. Like, we're still going to do goal of the year, performance of the year, all that stuff in next week's episode. It's going to be a little bit shorter because I think the other discussions we've been having are truthfully just more entertaining now. But from a tradition standpoint, our Habsland MVP, I think, is our most important thing to keep going because it's a snapshot in time of who are the best players on the team. And over the years, so we've done this is our 4th year doing it now. Nick Suzuki has been, let's go right to the top, right? We're going to go 1 to 5. Brian and I have different top 5s. We usually have a consolidated one by the end of it. And we'll do the same.
Yeah, let's do that.
So Nick Suzuki has won 3 years in a row. He has been number 1. And around that, we've had Cole Caulfield at 2. I think Mike Matheson was 3rd back in 2023. Kirby Dach was 4th, and he played half a season. Like, that was dark times.
Yeah.
Jake Evans.
Monty's been up there.
Monty's made it multiple times. I think he was 5th in 2023, 4th in 24. Jake Evans was 5th last year. David Svart almost made it 1 year. Obviously, Slavkovsky made it in his D+2 year. He actually wasn't on the list last year. Lane Hudson in his rookie year was number 2 last season. Well, the one thing that's been consistent has been Nick Suzuki at number 1. If we would have done this podcast in the dreaded 22 season, he would have been number 1 as well.
Yeah.
So, but we're not counting that officially. He's 3-peated, Brian. And as you and I briefly mentioned at the end of the Game 5 episode, we are accounting for both regular season and postseason. We can have a quick discussion throughout this about how the playoffs have affected our rankings. So the question is, Brian, who do you have at the top of the pile? Is Nick Suzuki going to 4-peat?
No.
Okay.
He has not 4-peated from my perspective, and I say that with about 98% of uncertainty because the margin is razor thin between he and Lane Hudson.
Yeah. Listen, I had Nick number 2 after the regular season, and he stayed at number 2 after the postseason. I agree with Lane Hudson at 1. It sounds like you have Nick at number 2, so that full agreement there. Hudson for me was not number 1 in the regular season. 1, 2, and 3 to me were razor sharp in the regular season. The postseason clarified a lot. But let's go with Lane. He's really good at hockey, guys. That's
very good.
12 goals, 66 assists, plus 36, 6th in Norris voting. The hardest slap shot I've seen in years in Game 3 against Tampa Bay. Really was only neutralized when Marty, so there's this great quote about, I'm going to forget the name of the coach who coached North Carolina when Michael Jordan was there. And it was, the joke was basically the only person that can keep Michael Jordan under 20 points was that coach because he just wouldn't play him all that time, a long time. He would just say, okay, Mike, you're playing 25 minutes tonight. In very much the same way, Marty St. Louis is the only player, the only person that can neutralize Lane Hudson because he plays him on the right so often. The only time we saw Lane Hudson be like Spider-Man, like Tobey Maguire in Spider-Man 3 when he loses his powers was when he played on the right side. When he was on the left side, he was legitimately a game breaker, one of the 10 best players in the league. I know I said top 10 defenseman, but he's one of the few guys that elevated in the postseason, which when you have 19 games, you can't hide. He was amazing. He's awesome. And what do you got to say about Lane?
The timeline for a defenseman is not usually play a couple seasons and already be the most important player on your team. That's not something that exists. And for this to have happened so quickly with not a first round pick, not even an early second round pick, but a 62nd overall pick, are you shitting me?
Yeah.
How lucky are we? The thing that I liked most about him in the playoffs, I think, was that he was not deterred by the violence. He was not afraid to get into checking situations. And that was the thing that I was worried about with his size. I will put a tiny little asterisk on that against Carolina, the bangs and bruises were starting to show. I think that he became just slightly less tenacious. Now, that being said, 101 games, once again, nobody's done that. So him especially. So something to be said for that. But he was not shying away from it. He has that same thing I was talking about Demidov before, his lateral movement is so good that he can get out from checks. He can get away from them. and you just see guys flying into the boards head first because they thought Lane Hutson was there, but he ain't there anymore. He's brilliant at passing in every single zone. The breakouts were calm and collected until he saw a guy 3 lines away that he could feed on a breakaway. He does anything and everything. He scores goals from the goal line a couple of degrees out. I still remember that one against Philly last season. Just what more can you want? And this is where I want to start the playoffs versus regular season discussion, not in the context of like this guy was good and then and that. What percentage points did you put playoffs versus regular season in terms of like calibrating this? Because if it's all regular season, that's why you would have had Cole Caulfield in the one spot. No need to be coy. I know that's who you had. If you're going all playoffs, maybe Dobesh is your guy, or maybe Alex Newhook is in the one spot. So like, is it a 50-50 split? Is it the number of games? Is it, you know?
Yeah, great question. I don't know if I have like a strong math about it. It's probably still leans more regular season, but like it's not 82 versus 19. Like the value of those 19 games is like double, if not triple. So like my tier at the top, truthfully, 1, 2, and 3 was Caulfield, Suzuki, Hudson. That was my 1, 2, 3 going into the playoffs. And it was razor thin between the 3. And I thought, look, man, 51 goals, 12 game winning goals. I can't knock that. That's going to be number 1. Right. And then the playoffs happened, and it was really about like, how much are you elevating or how much are you regressing? And the longer, look, ironically, honestly, like Brian, like if they lose in Tampa in game 7, Caulfield might still be number 1. Right? Like it's the prolonged playoff dropped Caulfield down. Whereas, so I don't know if I have like a 70-30 or whatever about it, but certainly like, man, those playoff games mattered a hell of a lot. It doesn't like, I'm not booting Cole Caulfield off my top 5, and but he was mediocre in the playoffs. So just call it how it is. Where again, like relative to his regular season, Lane Hutson got better. Like he elevated, he played 25 and a half minutes a night. When he was there, look, he made mistakes, sure, but he was always back the next game to do better. And like the hard part is like and I thought maybe 2 weeks or a week and a half would like get the bad taste of the Carolina series out of my mouth. It really hasn't. Like I still remember like everyone was bad those last 4 games. So it's like, anyways, what about you? Like, how did you like kind of blend in the regular season versus the postseason?
There was a stretch when we first had this idea to present regular season playoffs and just the overall MVP for both, where I was thinking like playoffs should be 60% and regular season should be 40%. And I've come back on that. I'm more 50-50, leaning a little bit regular season. I think if you make it to the final, and especially if you win, it's almost all playoffs at that point. Like who gives a shit what happened? 50 goals, good for you. What did you do in the final? That's how we would have felt. Getting to the third round, that was a bitch slapping and then some. You have 2 rounds of competitive hockey to talk about, plus 1 good game and then 4 bad ones. I think regular season still trumps it. And to be honest with you, at the end of the regular season, Lane Hutson was still my guy in the 1 spot.
Okay.
And it was, again, razor thin between him, Suzuki, and Caulfield, honestly. The 3 of them, like every day I would go back and forth. One of them would have a night and I go, oh, it's Caulfield all the way. He just scored 2 goals, including the game winner. Mm-hmm. And then Hutson would do something stupid, like put the puck through his legs and deke 2 guys and feed Suzuki. Like they're all incredible. So like, I think Lane Hutson is the guy.
Unreal. Unbelievable.
And 6th in Norris voting is pretty impressive for such a young dude. And that idea of awards brings us to the next 2. So let's go to Nick next. He's my number 2. He's your number 2 for the MVP of the season plus playoffs. Congratulations on your first of many Selke trophies, Nick Suzuki.
Best regular season 2-way performance we've had in, I don't know, 40 years for a Montreal Canadian player. 29 goals, 72 assists, plus 37. Playoffs were a struggle on a specific end. He was 3rd on the team in ice time, which, remember, he's a forward. So it's Matheson and Hudson above him, and then it's him. He was way more physical in the playoffs. And that's not an accident. That is Nick Suzuki making a conscious decision to up his game from a physical standpoint to get more involved, which is why when we were talking a lot about Caulfield and Slavkovsky and the struggles they were having, we were not always including Nick. Now, again, by the time we get to the Carolina series, especially the last couple games, everyone's terrible. Nick's not shooting the puck. What was going on? But like, forget those last couple moments. Like Nick was way more physical in the Tampa series, way more physical in the Buffalo series, especially compared to his regular season. And the regular season, he won the friggin' Selke trophy. Like,
right.
Which, by the way, pretty historic in terms of Selke. since the lockout, only Pavel Datsyuk in 2010 had less time on ice on the penalty kill than Nick Suzuki did.
Yeah.
And
I was going to highlight that too. That's super impressive to have won a Selke with very little penalty. It used to be a prerequisite. Up until this season, it's been a prerequisite. You have to be one of the prime on the first, like even forget second unit. You have to be a first unit penalty killer.
You look at it between
the irony of that being that like maybe Jake Evans is slightly better on the penalty kill, but Nick Suzuki's probably the best penalty killer of the forward group, and he didn't get to do it because it's too much time.
Exactly.
So how good was he over 200 feet at 5-on-5 to have won this award without penalty killing? That's remarkable.
Yeah, again, I agree. There's an alternate universe where Nick doesn't have the hands he does, and he's not as like smooth as he is, where he's the best shutdown third line center in the league because he's allowed to play 3 minutes on the penalty kill every single game and not 42 seconds. Yeah. By the way, that Datsyuk one was his third in a row, so it was kind of legacy at that point, which was I think why voters were okay with him winning it, despite not being on the penalty kill much anymore. But you go through the years of Patrice Bergeron and Anze Kopitar and obviously Alex Barkov and like all these guys, Sean Couturier, they play a billion minutes on the penalty kill. Nick Suzuki was great. He was my number 2 in the regular season, number 2 in the postseason. Well, no, he'd be lower in the postseason, but he overall he was number 2. Dragged down a bit by his line mates. He was a -8. Now I think like a -5 in the last 4 games against Carolina. So like whatever.
Right.
Unreal. So his three-peat ends with a runner-up spot. Okay,
not due to him being bad. He won the frickin' Selke. It's due to Lane Hudson being phenomenal. Just want to point that obvious statement out.
Okay. Who did you have at number 3?
I had to have Cole Caulfield. No amount of playoff incredibility, not that that's a word, no amount of playoff, like amazing performance in the playoffs was going to pull a 50-goal scorer away from the 3 spot. I just couldn't do it flat out. So I have Cole in the 3 spot. You're covering your mouth and you're looking away from me. Really, Jordan? Who is it?
Put Dobish at 3.
Okay. So I toyed with that idea. I have Dobish 4.
Okay, that's the discussion though.
Yeah, it's those two.
So
certainly.
Dobish, you could certainly argue, was the best player they had in the postseason, especially considering Hudson's Carolina series, which part of it was, maybe he broke down a lot. I think a lot of it was he was on the right side the whole series and couldn't get out of third gear. So that aside, Dobish was their best. I think Dobish was probably a borderline top 5 in the regular season. Noah Dobson probably would have gotten my vote as the 5th guy, I think, at the end of if it was just a regular season only, probably a slight Noah Dobson edge over Jakub Dobish.
That's who I had too.
Okay. Yeah. 29, 10, and 4 regular season, 278 goals against, 9th in goalies in terms of goals saved above expected per 60. Postseason, 3rd among goalies and goals saved above expected per 60. And really, it's like if you look at from the Olympics onwards, like so in the first 2/3 of the season, Dobish is the stabilizer. That he comes in when Monty is floundering and he gives them 2-3 good games in a row, and then Marty, because Marty is Marty and he is very patient and trusting of his team, he would keep giving Monty chance after chance after chance. And even when Monty like floundered in the end of December and they brought Fowler up, Dobish was still there to stabilize stuff. And then Monty started floundering again. So Dobish just kept coming in to like save, like pull the team out of a free fall because of the poor play of Sam Montembeault. And then you get out of the Olympics and it's the same thing where Monty is not good. And it's now Fowler's there as well, but a lot of it is just Dobish pulling them up to like, hey, okay, guys, let's take a beat, take a breath. We are a good team. That's Dobish's first 2/3 of the season. He's not playing that much. I don't know. Does he have 20, 25 games of the first 50? Like he's not playing that much. And then you get post Olympics and he is the number 1 goalie on the team and they're riding him hard and he elevates. And he is part of the reason they rip off that 7 or 8 game winning streak, whatever it was that started with the Islanders game in March. And it's like, oh, okay, that's more consistent. This is now a starting goalie. And then you get to the playoffs and he is magnificent in the playoffs. He's their best player. He has 1 bad game in the Buffalo blowout loss in game 6. But even that game, you could argue like the team just hung him out to dry. The stuff he did in the Tampa series was awesome. You and I have talked about those final few minutes of game 5 a bunch. He was incredible there. He was huge in the overtimes, specifically the game 7 overtime against Buffalo.
Yeah.
Some of his best games were in losses. Game 6 OT, losing to like the duel in him and Vasilevsky. That's probably something not to spoil game of the year. And I know we don't like picking games that the team loses, but like that to me was the best hockey I saw the Canadians play and an opposing team play against the Canadians all year. And it was Vasilevsky going up against Dobish, like pound for pound. Sadly, he loses it. But Dobish to me was unreal. On the Caulfield stuff, magical regular season. 51 goals. Like, I had him number one. You had him number one out of the regular season. 12 game-winning goals. He wins the Lady Byng, not to be undermined there.
Yeah.
And then his postseason happens, and it's a pretty big nosedive. And it's tough to take that bad taste out of my mouth. And the fact that Dobish not only was beginning to trend up in February, but March and April as well, and then he was their best player for 6 weeks against the toughest competition. They went through the bloodbath. They went through the Atlantic, and then they ran up against the buzzsaw that was the Hurricanes. So, yeah. And again, it's a 19-game postseason. That's pretty damn long, man. They're gonna have played the third most games than any other team, and there's a chance actually they still end up playing more games than Carolina. So I hate how I feel bad, like I'm so down on the Caulfield performance after the postseason, and maybe I shouldn't be. 6 goals, 7 assists, -10. It's rough. I don't know. Look, I'm okay if you like. I made my argument for Dobish over Caulfield, and part of me just feels like crap because I always put Cole Caulfield in tier 2 of our player value rankings every year, and this was the year Cole started to prove me wrong, and then he has that playoff. Right. He said it himself. I'm not being critical of Caulfield when I say like he wasn't good. Like, he said it himself. So whereas Dobish is the breakout star of the playoffs. You know, he's not going to win the Conn Smythe, but he's the breakout star of the playoffs, along with probably Stankoven. Yeah, I'll let you make the final pick on Caulfield versus Dobish. I'm fine either way.
Okay, I mean the Dobish stuff is incredibly compelling. You laid it all out beautifully. I'll make a couple little arguments for Cole Caulfield, and one of them I'm going to rehash something you said earlier. 12 game-winning goals, and on top of those 12 game-winning goals, I watched just for the fun of it, just to make myself feel better after they got eliminated. Maybe day 3 or 4 afterwards. When you start coming out of that just black cloud, I was like, I want to watch some Caulfield goals. So I went on YouTube. I watched like all 51 of his goals this regular season. And what was remarkable wasn't only the game-winning goals, it was the tying goals with seconds left on the clock to bring it to overtime, and then he scores the overtime winner. So that was impressive to me. The Lady Byng, very much from my perspective, is A, very well deserved, B, incredibly poetic considering that Martin St. Louis, his coach, has won it, similar type of player, and also his late great friend and USA teammate Johnny Gaudreau. So incredibly meaningful to him, obviously. But the third point there, he should have won the Rocket. If empty net goals were spat on like they should be, Cole Caulfield won the Rocket Richard Trophy this year. And so they said, you know what? Anybody who voted said, you know what? Let's give him the Lady Byng because nobody really cares about that award anyway. So let's give it to the guy who should have won the Rocket. McKinnon, you are washed. First round exit doesn't look good on you, buddy. Obviously, I'm saying this tongue in cheek. McKinnon's an incredible player. But Cole Caulfield should have won the Rocket. I'm tired of empty net goals factoring in. He destroyed everybody, even within striking distance of him, in terms of goals. So anyway, that's my spiel for Cole Caulfield. 51 goals.
Okay, yeah. Look, I'm fine with that.
Is that all right?
It's the most magical regular season someone's had. Watching it those last couple months, the chase for 40 that turns into the holy crap, it's a chase for 50. Wonderful. By the way, Nathan McKinnon, 3rd round exit, not 1st round exit. Put some respect on his name.
Yeah, you're right.
It's okay. Little brain.
Yeah, you're totally right.
We've been podcasting for almost 2 hours. It's okay. So,
not only that, but just this playoffs has been chaotic, has it
very
not
much
been?
So. So Caulfield gets 3, Dobish gets 4. It's really tight, and Dobish is the playoff MVP for whatever that's worth. Okay, 5. Yes. 5, I had 3 names. I don't know what you had. I had and I'll go alphabetical here. Dobson, Newhook, and Slavkovsky is my 3 main. Shout out to
that is correct.
Shout out to Demidov.
That is exactly
Demidov,
right.
Matheson. Shout out to them. Not enough, really.
Yeah.
Not enough consistency out of Evans or Deneau, despite their great playoff. But it was those 3 guys. Newhook, it's straight up because of the Buffalo series. He wasn't healthy enough the regular season. Not his fault, but he came back from it. He got better, and then he is the reason they beat Buffalo. Noah Dobson doesn't have the postseason we wanted because he wasn't healthy, but my goodness, was he good in the regular season? And probably would be my number 5 pick if this was just the regular season only. And then Slav was my number 4 coming out of the regular season. And he showed us primarily that he can succeed away from Suzuki and Caulfield when he played half a season with Kapanen and Demidov. And I think that gives you a lot of confidence, a lot of flexibility for Hughes and Gorton going forward of like, okay, I don't have to worry about tethering Slav to Suzuki and Caulfield. He can create on his own. Now, Slavkovsky has the same issue that Caulfield had. That it's a disappointing playoff. So that dings him a bit. Who did you give the edge to?
I did have Slav, but I kept going back to Newhook's playoff performance and thinking that he should be the guy. It just, what kept entering my mind for Slav is that he allowed Nick Suzuki and Cole Caulfield at various points during the regular season to do incredible things. He would be the first man in that would allow them to have the chance to score the game winner or the game tying goal or whatever was happening in the game. Slavkovsky was facilitating that action. And in the regular season, Newhook played, half the games? 42, slightly over half the games. So tough to make as big an impact in half the games. Then there's Dobson, who you mentioned, who was great. I had him in the 5 spot for the regular season. Definitely. I think you said you did too. And then Demidov was basically in the 6th spot for both regular season and the overall MVP for me. So it's a conversation. I really don't know.
So listen, I also went Slav 5.
Okay, so maybe
the
that's
tiebreaker is he did have a hat trick and an overtime game-winning goal.
Yeah,
so
he did.
That I know it's game 1 of the first round. It still happened. It still counts. And the last time I'll say this, I know they were offside, but he scored a perfectly legal goal that if Caulfield's not offside, he has a mega goal in game 4 of the conference final.
I forgot about that.
Maybe pushes them to a 2-2 series. It would have given them the lead with 10 minutes left, 11 minutes left. And that amazing, eh? One skate being offside. Then it's like, it's not even close. Then Slavkovsky is absolutely the guy because now he has a game winning, likely, who knows what Carolina does, right? But that he still scored a clutch goal. No one knew it was offside until a minute later. Again, it's fully offside. I know I keep saying this, but it doesn't take away the clutch factor of the Dobson pass to Slavkovsky. They didn't know they were offside. They did not gain an advantage by Caulfield being offside 31 seconds earlier. So I give them credit for they came up in the clutch. They just didn't know they lost on a technicality beforehand. Whatever. Slav is number 5. Hat trick in a playoff game. Cool. He has 30. By the way, 30 goals, 43 assists. This was more than Suzuki had, and he was number 1 in 2023. Right? Yeah. I think Suzuki had, was it 66 points in 2023? And then he zoomed up to 77 the next year. So he would have led the team. He would have been number 1 3 years ago. Slavkovsky would have.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right. I'm good with that. I came in thinking that, kind of unsure, but let's throw it his way. Playoff honorable mentions. You said Phil Deno, Jake Evans. Both of those dudes were phenomenal defensively, and the Canadians do not get half as far as they did without their really, really, really good play. Caden Gooley, I thought, jumped a whole big level in the playoffs. That was a relief beyond relief to see that. Josh Anderson was a playoff animal. He, like everybody else, started trailing off near the end, but you could say that about basically everyone. So just some honorable mentions there. Regular season, Mike Matheson, not the all-star that he was a few seasons ago when he was the main guy. Oliver Kapanen, his start was sick, 22 goals. He was third. He was 4th on the team. He was 4th on the team between 3 guys in the top 5. So great job, Kapanen. Keep working at it. I have less than no clue where you're going to end up next season within this roster, but keep going, dude. Keep going. Maybe he has more to show. I don't know. Do you have any other honorable mentions? I think I mentioned all of mine.
Yeah, I think you've mentioned about 80% of the roster at this point, Brian.
Screw off. I haven't made that many guys.
I think we've hit them all. I think Evans and Dano are the 2 I wanted to make sure got their flowers because they were. If this was just the postseason, I think we've mentioned it. It's Dobesh 1, it's Hudson 2, it's probably still Suzuki. No, it's probably Newhook 3, Suzuki 4, and then it's between Dano and Evans.
I had Newhook 2 even above Hudson, which is crazy, but those series winners are massive. So
2 series winning goals. I'm not gonna fight you too hard on it. Shout out to Alex Newhook. He gets the honorary number 6 spot
Yes,
that's
let's
been
do
around.
that.
Okay, listen. This was a fun discussion. It still hurts. The Carolina loss still hurts. Is the truth in all of this. But these guys didn't disappear. Like, they still had big moments. There's still big Slavkovsky moments. Cole Caulfield still scored 6 goals. I know he's getting dragged by people. He still scored 6 goals in 19 games. It's not nothing.
No, the dragging is completely unwarranted. Yeah. Even like taking away the excuse of 101 games, like how much better could he have been in the regular season for people to shut up? Like, seriously? Yeah.
Anyways, listen, they were great. It was a heck of a year. I think we'll wrap it there. We kept it nice and short this episode.
Yeah. Thank you, listeners. Thanks for sticking around for our literally our longest episode ever, by far. What's the previous record? An hour and a half?
I think
maybe?
It's this exact episode 2 years ago, which led us to last year splitting this episode into 2, which we did not do this year.
Which we should have done this year. Well. Way to go.
Anyway, we'll call it there. Look, we'll be back again, kind of every Monday. Next Monday, we'll come back. We'll dive, I think, more in on the, like I said, the Doc decision, the contracts for Bolzuk, the Jack-Eye Struble stuff. I'm going to start throwing some trades out to frustrate Brian more than Lundell and 9 for Dylan Larkin. I also want to honestly, I want to talk about the most interesting contract extensions this year, because I think Demidov's in the top 5. I'm talking NHL wide, but I think there's other guys that are way more interesting. I think we'll have time to talk about, and I think we'll do the same thing. We'll go kind of rapid fire for part 2 of our year-end awards, our goal of the year, game of the year, performance of the year, nemesis, all that stuff. We'll tack that on at the end of next week's episode as well. So stick with us through the month of June. Ideally, it's every Monday. We might have to move things around here and there. We're not perfect, but we'll do our best. Thank you for listening to us. You can follow us on social media at Habsland Pod if you like what you hear. Follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, 5-star ratings, all that good stuff. And until next Monday, go Habs.